I'm actually glad that I built this dashboard that records what was going on in each loop, incrementing the count for each x-axis, and then recording the fold scores under each x-axis, and then and also the protein sequences, so that later on, after the end of the simulation, I can take a look at it, the actual data, and see which proteins actually have the highest, are able to tolerate more, are able to go to the extremes. And temperature, there are two denaturation points, cold temperature and hot temperature. So the first dashboard, the temperature, I was able to evaluate it. And like yesterday, I was kind of like, I think I have the formula right. I think that my decay rate makes sense. It makes sense in my head. And then as it turns out, there were so many issues. There's one protein, the insulin, that actually has annotations. So I was able to fix that. And then I went over all the data. There's only 319, and there's just that one that has, other, that has annotations. So that has no, like, it's not just the pure sequence. There's notes there, and I wasn't able to see that until now. So first, having this dashboard, I was able to spot that mistake. And then secondly, I was able to, like, I think it's really good to have like a summary statistics, because now I can see that actually not a, I need to think about the decay rate even more. I said, like, I was hoping that this is it, I didn't have to redo, but I did all that work only to find out that no, it does not make sense, and I have to rethink the whole thing again. Because first of all, what really makes sense is like the base. What I know for sure is that the higher the base fold score, the base fold score already contains so much information. Like, if it's the highest base score, should be the most tolerant. But because of my second logic, which is the decay rate, somehow it's not, like, it's making the base, the proteins with the high base score, it's really not rising to the top. It's not becoming more tolerant. So and so kind of have to rethink that again. And ChatGPT had said that the list of those that were at the extreme ends that were reporting higher tolerance to stress were actually not very strong proteins. So that that's kind of the validation to that. So now I know, like, yeah, I gotta do more. I gotta rethink the whole thing again. So, but that this dashboard that I just completed, it really helps with evaluating the formula, like the logic and all of that. So I gotta do more. Kind of tired, kind of disappointed, really, because I was kind of sure yesterday that I did well, that in my head it makes sense, and then as it turns out, it really wasn't. So